Hey, it's Steven from Improbable Wargaming. We got
Kyle McCord
hanging out as well. We're going to do some hobbying. We're going to talk about deals that GW has done. And we're going to talk about leaked. Let's say leaked. The leaked rules. I mean, they left out key things like the first 8 pages of the that would tell us what a lot of things mean. So I feel like really just a GW will showing us the things that a lot of people have already seen if you were playing the 10th edition stuff at Warhammer Fest, going to Kansas City where they're going to showcase some more of that. You're going to see these things. So I feel like a lot of it wasn't a big surprise, so we're going to talk about it. Then, so thanks for being here. We're going to do a little bit of their normal intro stuff. So we want to thank Bobby, as always, for supporting the channel. Got a big giveaway from supported by them this month. So giving away the big Command Edition, which has got lots of models, terrain in there. Of course, it's got an old, out-of-date rule book with that, because you know what? There's still lots of models and terrain. You can sure try. Yeah, so we got that going on, and then of course we want to thank Monument Hunt. Love working with using their paints. All the links for and excuse me, 3 Wargaming are all below. Follow the links and buy anything. It helps the channel, which we appreciate. And then we do have Patreon. Patreon has levels: $1, $3, and $5. All of them give you benefits of extra. You get basically two names in the hat for drawings on stuff, and then on top of it, we got your own private Discord, and we're even having Patreon people tournament. There's all sorts of stuff that's kind of benefit from outside of just directly as it grows. So that's kind of our normal spiel. To build models while we and paint. Nice. Yeah. Got Coach in there. That's Sean.
Oh, hey, Ryan.
Matt Rundy. What's up? And woo! So we got a few friends in there.
Yeah, we do.
Wonderful to see you all. So I'm thinking, is there any? We have a whole list of stuff to go through. Anything particular you want? Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Hang on.
Oh, yeah. So, well, it's hard to say because right now all the rumors that are going around my Harlequins, people are saying they're going away, Court faction. So I don't want that to happen. Sure. I would like to see them stay. I would love to see models added to the range to give them more depth to play. If that doesn't happen, then, and I would like, honestly, I like some of the, I love doing movement shenanigans. I did, but I also didn't. So see, no longer going to get like 12 inches of kind of craziness, charges and stuff. I'm glad to see that go. You're gonna have to be.
That's one of the.
Yeah. 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 It's true. There's a.
But.
Yeah.
That.
You can literally lose. I've literally lost games learning about the movement. They can literally change everything in a heartbeat. I've literally seen Trajan, which could barely move, ping pong across the board, killing everything that he touches, and then totally okay with touching the next model because good luck killing him, and he kills you back. You know what I mean? So I've literally seen things like that. So that in some ways is sad to see go because as I've gotten better at it, you know, I started winning games because of it. But it made it harder for Mike. What's wrong?
No.
Oh no! I wonder. We're trying to use this mouse to adjust the audio. Well, we can. There's a suppression little feature in there that's better. If not, I can turn. Cuts. You guys can hear the. Maybe. Okay, so I think
Is that better, guys?
Maybe it's better. Either way, let's continue. And I apologize if it's cutting out. You know, the other thing that I'm kind of happy to see go. Well, I'm torn on it because it's both good and bad. One of the things I Harlequin player as an elf player as even orc player, putting a vehicle on an objective marker so that when you kill that vehicle, my obstacle jump. The fact that they're gonna be battle shocked when they come out, and so it's sad go, but at the same time, I won't have to worry about it either. It's being used against me.
And let's talk about that because actually,
the mic is I mean we get okay. Well, let's use the orange one because I have to use both. Click this one on and we'll turn. This is what happens when terrible.
Let me get this figured out.
Let's turn this off too, maybe. Now, is that better? Or it looks like it's better. What do you guys think?
Can you hear us now?
La 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 la. Okay, well, let us know. It looks like the mic's working better. We will kind of hope for the best here. Do you have a family member nearby who can turn on the stream and give y'all real? Oh yeah, that's a good point. Well, I have the stream on my phone. I just normally don't.
How about now?
Is that better? Or it looks like it's better.
That feels like it's better.
Yeah,
I can hear
better.
me. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I think we're okay now. Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, sorry about that, guys. I think we got it. We'll just turn off all of the things that make it where you can't hear things.
Yeah. So you were talking about
yes. So we were talking about the loss of movement shenanigans, and we were talking about the loss of the ability to place transports on objective markers with the goal of hoping they get destroyed.
And one of the things I should mention is this. Okay, so this is something that I noticed is that battle shock is in your command phase.
Yes.
Right? So that means it still partially works because if your opponent blows up the transport and then you dump things onto an objective, it's true you don't deny them points. Mm-hmm. But you yourself could gain points.
True, because if you rally them or pay the CP for them to rally,
right,
then they're okay. So no, agree. There's still strategy there, but it
doesn't cut both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it did.
The one thing that's interesting about Battle Shock is now, from what I was understanding, is originally when I was at Warhammer Fest, they were saying that Battle Shock would happen when you hit 50% or less.
Yep.
And then if you rallied, then unless you took more damage, you wouldn't get battle shot again. But then in the
not
leaks,
correct.
Exactly. Yeah. But in the leaked rules, it says the other. It's just every turn you're doing it, which to me is a little annoying because they said it's supposed to speed up the game, but then what I'm doing is I have to go through and be rolling down the line, and to me that's a little. It seems annoying.
It does certainly make stuff that takes a lot of damage markedly less dependable.
Yes.
If you take a bunch of damage and then you're like, okay, well, I guess that now I don't know if I can leave this on an objective.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's going to do the work.
True.
Which is interesting. I mean, what I'll say is, Battle Shock is definitely going to be a far more important part of the game, especially especially because, like for example, I was watching Siegler talk about Necrons, and he was like, "Why is their leadership only 7?" Right? And it's like, well, that's the best anybody's really getting. Right, like if you go to heroes and things like that, okay, they're getting like a 4 or a 5 or something like that in rare instances. But even then, we're not looking at overwhelming kind of like leadership domination for the most part.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so it's the bigger question comes into me for like thinking of like Jakari, right? They have leadership shenanigans, and so like they have those grotesque trophies that give you like a -2 to your leadership. So I'm curious how that's going to translate if it even comes over. So that's really piqued my interest on that end. Like, how is that going to affect it? So there's definitely some things that I'm really curious about.
It's a new game in town. I mean, and I'm glad that that's a more dominant feature of it. There's and so one of the two that you made your list also makes my list.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, so things we'll start positive and then I'll work towards the negative. I'll flight that way. So so one of the things to say is that this castigator, you might say to yourself, Kyle, I happen to know you already have a castigator. That is true. And so I've been those of you who know this, have been finishing out my big collection, and so I have 3 of most things, right?
Yep.
But I'm excited for new things to be good. Right. There's been so many things it seems like no matter how they adjust the points, still end up being fairly mediocre.
Sure.
And so there's a huge amount of entries in, Space Marines or in various codices that just aren't that interesting. Right. And so I am excited for new things to be good.
I agree. I think the one thing we can all agree, I see a lot of people getting upset and kind of hooting and hollering about, oh, my army's no good anymore and stuff. But honestly, what I'm looking at is this is probably without a doubt a really true refreshing of the competitive scene.
Yep.
They're just refreshing up the whole thing. So we're looking at what was good before probably isn't good now. But that also means, like you were saying, models that were sitting on the shelf collecting dust now are going to be coming out to play, and it's going to be really interesting to be figuring out what's good, what's not, and starting a whole new, almost like a whole new competitive scene.
And that builds on something that also actually what you're pointing out is very much what Joshua Thomas and I have been talking about, which was, I would be interested what people in the thread think about this. The cards, you got to have a feeling about the cards, right? One way or the other, you love them, you hate them. And what I'll say is this.
Good point.
Well, I'll give you this example, okay, from LVO, right? A player who I very much like and respect, we'll go without naming them just because I don't know who I can name and who I can't.
Sure.
We got to the round of LVO that everyone hates, where it's going to be, or you're going to have to play really late, and that decides the cutoff.
Yep.
And he said to his opponent, and I don't think this is unfair, I think it's absolutely relevant to do this. He said, here's how this game plays. If you do this, I do this. You do this, I do this. And the player said, well, what if I try this? And he says, you do this, I do this. And the opponent said, good game. Right? And it wasn't that it was disingenuous. I don't think that's bad play on either person's part. It belies a problem in the actual way that the game was set up. Right? Which is, it's a little too predictable. It's a little too easy to game the system and to really know this is exactly what I'll be facing. Yep. Okay, cool. But what if you're playing on a map that you didn't expect? What if your opponent decides, you know what? The gambits are real stupid, right? They're real dumb, but you know what? This game, the only way I win is with this wild card trying to roll a 12. And look, there'll be some feels bads with that. No argument.
Sure.
But I do think that it creates a little more spontaneity in the game, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So then things I'm happy to see go away. And actually this falls into the realm of sort of the leaks we saw. So one of the things that Steven and I are talking about is things like when you move in your pile-in, you must move base to base if you can. If you consolidate, you must move base to base if you can.
Yep, and to the closest.
And to the closest. And consolidate only happens if there's somebody still alive, I believe is what it says.
So there's two parts to the consolidation part. One is either you can consolidate and touch base to base with another unit.
Yep.
Or you're able to consolidate and touch an objective marker. If you can't do those two things, no consolidation.
Which yes, and I just watched Matthew Rundy at our team tournament down in KC.
Yep.
I came over and Abaddon was running rampant in the backfield of the Tau by
They'll
turn
do that.
3. Right. He'll have
that.
a harder time doing that with the movement restrictions.
And it looks like the wound caps are gone too, right? I didn't see Abaddon with a wound cap anymore. It looks like, and I didn't see minus one damage on any of the other
not
stuff.
on Death Guard either.
Yeah, can we click on the Space Marine one out of curiosity? I know it's a Death Guard either.
It's not on the Dreadnought.
Yeah, it's not on the Dreadnought. And if we'll scroll down to the big Dready, if you would, I'm just keep going. You can go faster. If you just see the big two-legged walker, and everyone, my wife's helping out today as always. Our wonderful producer extraordinary. Keep going, keep going.
Detachment rules.
Oh, the doctrines, of course. They kept the doctrines, which is pretty cool.
They kept Oath of Moment, which is...
Okay, there's the Land Raider.
Keep going.
Which I'm surprised that doesn't have -1 damage. There's Rabute Gilliman.
And then... I don't know that they give us Dreadnought here.
I don't
they
think
gave
they
it to us.
so
They gave it to us on a different article, so let's not worry about it.
Yeah, we won't worry about it.
But I do know for a fact it's not in there.
And I know when I played the 10th edition at the at Warhammer Fest, they gave us the cards, and the cards did not say it either. So I can at least confirm that from my own scene of that, that stuff. But
I think -1 damage is gone.
I think it is, and honestly, I'm okay with it. It looks like feel no pains are still a thing, as we saw with the Imperial Knights.
Yep,
which
is really good.
Oh my goodness, especially I mean, I don't know how easy or how hard it will be to get honored. I think we only saw like one way of doing it, which was get to your home field, your opponent's deployment zone,
or killing their warlord. There's
or
two
killing
their warlord.
Oh, okay.
Both of which are a big ask.
Yeah, they really are, because if you know that that's gonna make them honor, they ain't gonna bring that out.
And you're gonna do everything in your power and it's not just like hold their objective. You have to hold it until the start of your command phase, which is.
That could be a big ask.
It could be a very big ask,
especially if you went first.
Right, and so you're like, okay, I got Canis Rex. This guy's super hot. Well, know what? Now he's got -2 wounds, and when he's moving on to that objective, he is getting a 5-up invuln. We don't know that they have rotate, right? Which is important.
Yeah, we don't know if we got the rotate ion shields.
So there's a lot of variables there, and I think that what I'll say is this: it's very, I've talked to a lot of players who've said, "Oh man, and we'll talk about this in a second. The reveal for X, is so spicy, and the reveal for X is ice cold." Yep, let's look at the points, right? And then so that's what I would say is So we can turn off the stream now because there's no way of knowing for sure. But no, please don't tune out. But no, what I'll say is. There's always until we get a full picture, always going to be that caveat of no matter how much it looks like, we just don't know from what they've shown us exactly.
Yeah.
But we know some things.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's amazing to see Gilliman at toughness 9, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. The fact he's got 10 wounds. I mean, he is a beast.
Is he as tough as a Rhino now?
He is, yes.
He's as tough because a Rhino's a 9.
Yeah, he's a 9. He's basically a Rhino.
What do you think Centurions are going to be? I was thinking about that the other day.
I don't know, but I mean, Rabute looks really good. I know a lot of people want to see what the Lion looks like. There's definitely going to be a Lion shortage. I was talking to a GW rep, and they said they only made 1,200 of them. They're just gone.
There's 11,999, and there's one sitting in my basement, right? And I got commission painted, so this man has no Lion shortage.
Yeah, but it's definitely interesting. Now, if you guys think of any questions or anything that you're interested in from the leaks and everything, please let us know. Why don't we scroll down? Let's go over to the Death Guard. Let's check out what they've got.
I think there's a good way to approach it, Steven. I got an idea.
Yeah, let's hear it. Shoot, whatever you want.
I think what we do is...
What do we do?
I think we talk about the 3 that we think are the most spicy.
Oh, I like it.
The 3 spiciest. And so
Yeah.
you pick first, and then I'll pick mine.
Oh, it's all the pressure's on me. Okay, so let's just go to the elves because
You're going so obvious.
I know I can't help it. Let's
so
start.
obvious.
I'm gonna be obvious. I'm going to the elves. Let's scroll. Okay, so we're gonna skip Death Guard. Let's scroll all the way down, and we're gonna click on
Eldari.
Eldari, please, ma'am. And let's talk about the Eldari because, I mean,
Keep going. You're almost there.
Almost,
oh, it's a
there
big
he
guy
is.
with the big wings.
The big wings.
There's our Autarch.
There we go. The
Where's
winged
Baharroth?
Autarch.
I don't know.
It could be. I mean, that's what I do with mine is I converted my winged one into a Baharroth.
Right.
But yeah, let's keep going. The children, the craft world, my babies. I mean, to me, I really am excited about this idea that I'm rolling 12 fate dice at the beginning of the game.
So many fate
If I
dice.
don't like the fate dice, I can toss one in the garbage and roll 11 and try to do better, right? And then you keep them. And then I love the fact that we've got our psychers now that can manipulate the dice, right?
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have we're gonna be like, oh, so even if you roll a 1, right, and you're like, okay, well, I want to make sure this passes that armor save. Now that he's within, I think it was like 6
inches.
6 inches, and I bet you can extend it 3 more. I'm going to turn that 1 into a 6. So it utilizes the bad rolls too.
It does.
And then lets you save the good ones for other saves. So I like that. I love the fact that, of course, we need to learn more about this, but the Guardians producing these fate dice, if you will. And the bigger question to me is, so let's say I have 3 squads of my not my Dire Avengers, but of my excuse me,
Avenger Guardians.
Thank
Or no,
you.
Guardians. A Guardians.
Guardians.
Yeah.
If I got 3 squads of Guardians, who's is it any point that they're holding by my next command phase they generated, or is it only points out in no man's land? Is it only the point on my home objective? That's where my question is, right? Like where do I collect these from? Because that's going to be key, right?
It is.
To be able to generate more, it's going to be huge. So I'm super excited about that.
No matter what they're pointed at, there's no question that functionally Miracle Dice, which is more or less what it is,
Yeah.
And it has similar kinds of manipulation to what Sisters had.
Yeah.
And so I think that I agree. It's super. I think everyone who watched the Eldari reveal, there's no way you could look at that and be like, well, they really got shafted, right?
No. I was not. I guess I was torn with the fact that normally you roll 6s on the wound and your AP goes up. They did say the AP is gonna be more rare, so I guess it was a fair compromise. Now we get exploding 6s on the hit, which is not a bad thing. More dice that someone has to throw, the more likely they're failing saves. So that's not bad. So I'm feeling good about it. I'm really curious about a lot of things. I'm curious, how right now with the Sisters, they can throw away fate dice for points.
Right.
I wonder if there's gonna be a secondary like that, where we could do the same thing, or
I think there's no faction secondaries though.
Yeah, I don't know, right? I mean, I hear you, right? There can be generic ones, which would make it easier. If there's just generic ones, then we don't have to worry about
the balancing of that.
Somebody getting one better than everyone else. So that's true. So that may be what they do. And if that's the case, then so be it. We'll just learn to. The only thing I say there's a good thing and a bad thing. One, if there's just set ones that everyone has exact same, it can be a little boring.
It's true.
But at the same time, as a new player, you don't have to memorize all these different kinds. You'll learn quickly. Oh, this is how I stop these. This is how I score mine, and you'll pick up the game, I think, a lot faster that way. So there's that.
I think that's a virtue, and I think it's an interesting question because you're right. It could get a little samesies, and the last thing that anyone wants is stranglehold.
Yeah.
And what was our other one that was to the last?
Yeah.
Right, which is just like, okay, come on, right?
Ooh, what's your view on reanimation occurs based off the leaks? Ooh.
That's not Brandon, is it? No, Brandon's playing a game with Jacob.
That's Sean. He plays, Sean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
is this McManny?
Yes, I believe that's his last name off the top of my head. He DDoSed him.
Okay, cool.
Good. But I believe yes that on either way. But I don't know. I guess I didn't pay attention to reanimate.
I did.
So
I can answer this one. So what are my views of when reanimation occurs based off of leaks?
Yeah.
So I'd have to look at the specific wording. What I can say is I know that so basically the way the reanimation works now is not in the current game, but the way it's going to work is, if you are a multi-wound model, I believe you get one wound back. If you are a multi, you get 1. Or if you're warriors, you get D3. Or if you're warriors sitting on an objective, you get D3 plus 3.
Oh, wow. It sounds like reanimation is going to be meaningful, because a lot of the games I've played against Necron players, even they don't really rely on it. They do it because it's part of the mechanic and they hope it works. But I mean, I've seen it fail so many times that I can only imagine that it's definitely not something you're leaning into as your game plan of I will be back.
And I think when people were leaning into it,
yeah.
The way it was happening, the way it was most consistent, was that people were putting scarabs on an objective, doing 9 of them, and then saying, okay, these guys reanimate on a 4, and then you would kill a bunch of them, a whole bunch of them would come back, and it was like it felt very much like trying to step on bugs, right? Because you were like, okay, I just don't know how to kill these guys. Yeah. And especially if you were an inexperienced player, that was annoying. Or alternatively, if you were a more experienced player and you were playing Necrons and you were, running Scorpec Warriors, something really annoying like that, then they would occasionally come back, but the math wasn't in favor of it. Now we've kind of split the difference. In terms of when it actually happens, Sean's question is a good one. I would have to look at the specific wording on that, and I admit I haven't looked at it closely as I should have.
If I was a Necron player, I guarantee I would have read it far better than I have.
If Brandon were in the chat, he'd know.
Yeah, how dare he not be here?
Right, and then it is. What I'll say is it is very interesting. Could we scroll up just a bit on that Eldari article? Did Guardians go to a 4-up ballistic skill?
They didn't.
They didn't?
Elves kept their 3-up ballistic skills. People were actually mad about that because, like, Adeptus Mechanicus, stuff, but no, they still have their 3. They just have a weapon skill of 4. So in melee, they're not as good, but they still shoot real good.
You're not taking Black Guardians, I guess. Right? Not that you were before anyway. That does sort of weird me out. Because it's like, okay, so they shoot better than Tau, and they shoot better than...
Well, Tau's kind of weird, because when you look at Tau, and that's honestly the next one I want to do after yours.
Yeah, go Tau.
Tau are shooting on 2s with heavy weapons, with spawning and stuff. Oh my gosh, with exploding 6s and double exploding 6s, depending on what it is, you don't want Tau to shoot you in turns 3 on. They're going to wreck you.
Tau is very interesting, and I think there's mixed reaction to that.
Sure.
One of the things I'll say, and this is just my observation of, so on Facebook, I'm in a bunch of different groups. So because I play different Imperium armies. So I'm in AdMech, who have been sad for like 6 months, so I just turned them off. Right. I'm in Astra Militarum group, who is. Let's put it this way: alternately delighted and angered, right, by everything. And then I'm in Grey Knights and a couple others.
Yes.
Here is my observation, which is almost uniformly, people seem to think that their army has gotten worse, right? And I think that, again, that it says nothing about it says really nothing about the actual game itself. I think it has more to do with the way people think about their armies, which is they're very used to playing them in a particular way.
Yeah, and people don't like change.
But although I think people will be happy for the variation when they get the chance at it. But okay, let me stop. let me stop. Speaking down to the world. Because I admit when I saw the 4 ballistic skill on AdMech, I was like, oh come on guys, right? But the other so I want to talk about the Astra reveal, because
Astra.
So because of course Astra Militarum players do have the right to be a little miffed, because their book came out, it was really good without being absolutely broken, although Casterkin was not fair, but got a really good book, and then GW was like, all right guys,
Astra Militarum is down.
It's the fifth
right
one
below
in.
the Space Marine on the left hand side for you.
So
keep going up. There, perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
The Astra Militarum book, I'm excited for, because, or not book I should say, but the index, it feels a little bit more like 8th edition guard, which had the potential to be really interesting.
Okay.
But for example, okay, so some things that are interesting about this, of course, they have the ability to bump their weapon skill up, or not weapon skill, their ballistic skill up, which is great, right? We haven't gotten to see the toughness on vehicles, which is just mean-spirited. Why do we not know that? But as a guard player, I have a zillion commands, and I'm flipping through them and and it's a little bit of a feels bad for an opponent when I have to say to them, "Oh, and by the way, I can make this obsec during my command phase, and I can just steal this objective from you. Oh, and by the way, I can give this a 5-up, feel no pain. Oh, and by the way, it feels like I'm the octopus, and I'm just like able to hit all the buttons."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that this simplifies that, which is great.
Yep.
But also it keeps some of the cool stuff like, oh, I can just increase my command characteristic. That's really neat.
Yep.
I like the way the guard actual.
Oh no.
The actual guard unit came out. That's a little further down.
Yep.
We got some cool stuff with the special weapon options. Oh no.
Don't mind me. I'm trying to be clever
okay.
here.
And
Keep going.
they, the battle cannon, I'm still not going to use. I wasn't going to use it before, right? That's not any different, right? And then volcano cannon is hilariously big. It's not the weapon I care about. I have one, but I don't care.
Sure.
Right? Reinforcements, I love.
Oh, that's crazy good.
It's crazy, and it makes me want to go buy some Rough Riders. I have 10. I could buy some more. And just being able to be like, you know what? You wipe those Rough Riders out. It's a real bummer. Here's another herd of them that are just coming in and smashing you.
Yep.
Right? And it's a thing that Rough Riders actually needed, because the reason they don't see a lot of play right now, even though they hit like a truck, two things. One, Steve and you and I played that game where I couldn't get them around the dang building.
Yeah, I was very grateful. Never have to deal with them.
They were in the stable the whole game, right? And then they were just grooming the horses, right? There was nothing happening. So that's one part. But then two, when you did get them out, they got blown up, right? Well, it's less scary to have that happen if there's just more Rough Riders, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that we know that guard, according to what's told down there, we're going to get to keep our auto wounding 6s if we don't move. I'm less excited about not moving, but I think that's a fair trade-off, depending on how the points look, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great if it's like, well, it's still the same points as it was in 9th. You got to push things down a little bit.
Yeah.
But being able to give things orders and get some really good stuff out of it, I'm excited for guard. I think it still is going to be good. The Demolisher cannon, which I believe we did get to see, we know that's -3, right? And it's.
How'd you feel about the cannons on your Lehman Russes being only AP1?
People weren't playing that one anyway, right? Because it was -2 currently, so it probably feels about the same. It's strength 10, so it's just like before. You probably weren't using it to kill vehicles. Being damaged, I mean, and look, there maybe there's a world in which maybe we still have Gatekeeper and we still have one big one, but for the most part, people were playing hot plasma. They were playing, and the data sheet that, of course, I want to see because it's my baby.
Yep,
I want to see the Dorn. Right.
Yeah.
I want to see our toughness 13 Dorn, whatever it might be, whatever absurd toughness they decide to give it.
Yeah.
If because I will tell you that.
Well, let's be honest. Like, just based off of what we're thinking, right? Right now it's toughness 9, and an Imperial Knight is toughness 12, right? A Questoris. So if it, so now that's toughness 12. You probably are 13. You know what I mean? Because if they keep it that within 1.
And that starts to get. And here's what I'll tell you. This is my personal recommendation. And now that we've all had to turn in our team thing for KC.
Yeah.
Dorns in teams are insane. I had some poor fella had to play me with his Ravenwing list. And moved out with all their Meltas.
Yep.
And he was like, well, I guess I didn't kill the door. And I was like, I got bad news for you, which is everything that follows, right? Which is me just hitting you with 4 damage weapons. Because sometimes when you're T9, it doesn't matter that your save's not that good because they just can't wound you, right? And we have some anti-things we've seen. But anyway, yes, you're absolutely right. We probably are looking at toughness 13 Dorns.
Go up real quick there. What was that? I saw thank you. Okay, so the Bane Blade is T13. What is the Bane? But the Bane Blade right now is
9.
Okay, so that basically confirms it, right?
Basically confirms it. Yeah.
I mean, that's as good as we're gonna get. I mean, God, so many weapons. The Baneblade looks really good on paper. The fact it's got OBSEC 8.
And it turns into cover for your guys, which is a hilarious tech.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be more useful in this edition than the previous. I feel like this edition's rounding up to be a very vehicle friendly edition. Starting out.
The question is, how many points are the vehicles?
Well, exactly, right. We don't know if they're gonna, because I mean, with the toughness so high, the amount of wounds generally being high. The fact that a Baneblade has 2 more wounds than a Questoris Knight already bothers me a lot.
Is it 24?
Yeah, it's 24.
Well, it used to be 30.
Oh, so it has come down.
It came down.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So as long as it came down,
or maybe it wasn't 30. It was like 28 or something.
I think 28.
It was a zillion. It was the Shadow Sword was 30.
Oh, jeez.
And so I actually in this edition, I was looking at the math on it, and I was like, well, it is kind of cute if it wasn't so easy to see.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be shot from anywhere. It actually is real cute to put it out there, pop smoke on it for one, and just be like, "Good luck."
Well, right? It's interesting that we all have the pop smoke now, as long as it is a smoke unit, and stuff, which still limits it, but that's going to be interesting.
The new strats, I don't know totally what to think about.
Yeah, I haven't looked at them real close. I honestly, I've got to look at a couple, and it's like, okay,
I like that. I like that Insane Bravery is now 1.
Insane Bravery is 1, which is interesting. The Overwatch is still 1,
but Overwatch now happens in a bunch of different phases.
It can happen during your opponent's movement or your opponent's charge, but you can only use it once per turn.
Right? Which is huge.
So but which makes it also interesting because it begs the difference for me. It comes back to the Eldari, right? Let's say we're looking at Howling Banshees. Howling Banshees normally you can't fire Overwatch at them, at least at night. So this is Overwatch. Can it be done outside of the charge phase on Howling Banshee and still be done?
Yeah.
So that's curious, right? Because potentially there's certain units like Howling Banshees that will be like, we don't care, and march on through. We don't know, but it's really interesting.
It makes Flamers a much more interesting choice.
Yep.
I know that the AdMech group, a lot of people on there were like, "Ooh, those are my big flying guys who have a million Flamer shots."
Yep.
Now, what I'm doing with them is maybe I'm just putting them out there for my opponent's movement phase and saying, well, that seems fun.
Well, thinking of that, let's go over. See, we haven't got orcs yet, but what I will tell you is orc buggies, the ones that have 4 flamers each, are gonna be so good. You run 3 of those in a squad, and somebody comes anywhere near it, it's gonna be bad.
You're gonna be so disappointed when they've just taken it out of the codex for no clear reason.
You're like, no,
we just don't want to make those anymore. We're bored.
Yeah, no. But let's go ahead and let's jump into my next big one. I think that I'm interested in. Was I'm trying to. Can you scroll down just a tad? There it is. Let's go ahead and click on the Tau, because that's
the hot news from today.
Yeah, I mean, I've got so knowing that you've got Grey Knights, I have somebody who is very interested in my Grey Knights, so I traded them for all of their Tau. So I know you have Tau as well, but I thought, what the heck? I'm more than willing to say goodbye to the Grey Knights.
Sure.
And I'm a big mech fan. If you ask my wife, when it comes to animation, if it has a mech in it, I'm all in.
Sure.
So I'm not too upset to have my Tau. I'm going to do them in Tau Step colors because I like that kind of orangish brown look on them. And you don't see people doing it as much. Like every tournament I've been to, I've seen just the classic white or I've seen the red.
Sure.
But not really seeing the Tau Step colors, even though people were playing Tau Step.
For sure.
But the greater good, this right here looks amazing. The fact that we're able to guide units, they're, the one thing I loved. So I know some people were disappointed that they showed their scout unit, the Pathfinders. The fact that a Pathfinder unit can mark 2 units, and that to me is awesome. That's exactly what their job is.
Yep.
And the fact that you can spend, and we don't know how much you can spend, but we know you can spend points to make it where they have 4 deploy. I mean, to me, this is great, because if we're keeping the rule from like Shadow Sun, right, where she, Master of Kalyung, if you don't go first, she can redeploy 3 units.
Yeah.
If she keeps that, this could be super good.
Let's do something, which is, I'm interested in people in the chat. I think there were very mixed feelings about Tau. What do you think?
Good to hear that.
What do you think about Tau? I know there was a hot debate about this, and what I will say is, I So yeah, I think it's no secret that I watched the AOW stuff, and so
Yep.
I wrote Jack Harpster afterwards, and I said I think I just watched Richard Siegler be sad for 23 minutes, and I don't know, but because
That's hilarious.
he had fairly positive things to say about Admech. He was, and I think there were things that were encouraging to him.
Yep.
But I think for a lot of Tau players, they are looking at this and saying, well, now we're
So
ballistic
different.
skill 4. It looks really different. We have to run a lot of little units, right? And I think that, so I think I know what I think about the drone change. Kyle says, oh yeah, so you know what I think about the drone change. Oh, okay, so I'm assuming this is, oh, that's Dom.
That's Bob.
That's Bob. So Bob says the drone change is awful because now we don't have ablative wounds.
Yeah, they're
Right, we're
not.
just a
Yeah,
piece
you
of
can't just
gear.
be like, oh, that last cannon got through my armor. That's fine. It goes on the drone, kind of mentality. Like, oh, I'm gonna take that on the drone. Yeah, that's gone. And honestly, Bob, I'm okay with that.
Can't we? But can't we now spend the
There they are. Look at these guys.
Can't we now spend isn't there a drone that just gives you extra wounds? I think there is, right?
There might be because we've got several drones here. Because we've got a shooting drone, we got a marker drone, we've got a missile
Shield drone.
shield
Add
drone,
one to
add
the
one
bedroom to the bear's wounds characteristic.
That's pretty good though, because that means models now have 2 wounds. So basically, if you add this to that squad, everybody in there has 2 wounds now.
I think my
That
question
could be
is,
good.
I don't know. I think maybe it is. I don't think it's you add 1 to the whole squad. I think it's
Okay.
you get to pick one guy. They get an extra wound.
Oh, the bearer. So this is gonna be like the squad
Squad's
lead.
leader. But also alternatively,
Okay,
what
okay.
I don't know how many shield drones you can add. What if you have a
Yeah.
crisis student
Yeah.
unit and you're just like, okay, here's 5 extras.
Yeah,
Right?
It makes you wonder how many you can add, how much their points are gonna be for.
How many their points are, and that's what they
That's
asked to.
really a big deal.
because
This
here's
guardian drone, dude. Can we go up to the guardian drone? Let's look at that. Each time the model makes a ranged attack,
okay, subtract
that
one.
targets the bearer's unit. So also -1 to be hit. That's pretty good
minus
too.
1 to wound.
Or is it -1 to wound? That's even better.
But it's way better.
Yeah, especially when you're toughness 3.
When you're toughness 3, I think also I'm thinking about crisis suit blobs. I think they get a lot more interesting if you, and I think what you should expect as a Tau player is probably you'll get to take the dust off of those breacher teams or
Yep.
those fire warrior teams. I don't know.
It
I don't
sounds
know
like it,
anything.
though.
I don't, but I think that's what they're going for. And you want those little units because the other thing we don't have from that Pathfinder thing,
Yeah.
Dong, calling you out, is we don't know the squad size.
That's true because there's talk of a 20-man squads coming back for some of the
Or what if
armies.
it's a 5-man?
But yeah, we don't know if this is 5 or 20.
Because we don't have the back of the card.
Exactly.
And so if it's a 5-man, and by the way, their save got better.
Yep,
So
that's
it's
true.
not so. And there, look, I will say this as a guy who looks at ballistic skill as someone who really enjoys
Failed
shooting.
my leadership.
You failed your leadership really hard.
Yeah.
Then I will say that that having a 5-up ballistic skill looks real bad, right? But one of the things I'll say is, if it were like, okay, add 1 to hit rolls with the marker light, okay, no, that's not very interesting.
Yeah.
It's add 1 to ballistic skill. That's really big in the same way that with indirect, when it was
Yeah.
-1 ballistic skill, that made indirect that much weaker.
And that's what makes heavy weapons for the Tau so good because they're going to have the ballistic modifier and then the weapon also gets +1 to hit for not moving.
Yeah.
Can potentially push them into hitting on 2s for some of their stuff, hitting on 3s for other. It just looks real good.
Let's talk about the railgun.
Yeah, the railgun's really surprisingly different.
It is. What's interesting is, I thought it was going to match Harpoon Guy
Okay, yeah.
because it
Harpoon
was
Guy, yes,
Harpoon
yes.
Guy because Harpoon Guy was like, oh, so it's anti-infantry and anti-vehicle.
Yep.
So on a 4-up, and it was devastating wounds.
Yep.
It just turns into mortals.
Yes.
Not so with the railgun.
Now you have to roll a 6.
You have to roll a 6, and who knows? Maybe there's a world where we can just pop 6s, right? Maybe they have an Uther ability or something.
Yeah,
you know?
and we don't know, right?
That's something we don't know for sure. And so what I'll say is, I think I would be surprised if that existed. My guess is you kind of got to roll hard 6 there.
Yeah, I think so, which will be rare then.
Which will be rarer, which I think people will be happier with.
Well, let's keep one thing in mind. When you look at the Imperial Knight, right, that's a 650 point model with an 18-inch range weapon that you
Right.
could definitely avoid.
Which never sees play right now.
Exactly, never. So this potentially may see play, but you're only going to see one. because it's still 650 points and you can kill it.
And I think what I will say is I think people, not every Tau player, maybe Patrick is among these, is going to be delighted to have just one long strike that they're playing. But I do think that is the play style they're moving towards, is not here's just one or a few big shots, here's all the hot stuff coming off the suits. I think I think that's huge. One of my interesting questions is, and this goes out to all the Tau players, what happened to Monka?
Is it not just revealed? Because they didn't show us everything, right? We don't know. But so Monka, so I'm not taking this as all we get, right? I think they're just letting us see a few things. Because I can't imagine, right? Because currently, right, if you look at the Farsight Enclave, right? They're masters of Monka. So are we saying that they're just SOL in their play style in a sense? I don't think so. I think they're just not showing us everything.
Well, that would be interesting, because what it would mean is that there would have to be two different possible detachments for Tau. Because right now, as far as we know, there is only one for every other faction. That's what we know, right? And so we're hypothesizing, but it would mean that Tau are a little bit unusual, right? And so that is an interesting question. My impression is, with simplified but not simple, it is perfectly possible that there is no more Monka, right?
It's possible, yes.
And that is, and I will also say this, as someone who has played against Tau many times, being able to get double wounding 6s much earlier in round 3, not round 5, is spooky. That can really hurt. And so I think it's nice to see a little balance out in that way. Right? Because now it isn't like the last turn I'm going to absolutely ramrod you, right? Which is how things work, which can be really rough. And I think it also feels bad for people who don't know how to play against Tau, because then they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to walk out here, and you're like, okay, I have 5 shots, I'm going to hit you 10 times. Right? And they're just like, wait, what? It seems mathematically impossible. So look, and this is one of the interesting things that I do think is happening, is that some of what is going away is, I don't know how to play against this army. And that will still for now that will still be punished in some ways, but not as dramatically, where it's like, oh, I didn't realize I shouldn't step out, you blew every single unit in my army off the board. Right? It might mean that it costs you the game, but not in that same dramatic way. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that, and honestly, that's my first few games against Tau, like Bob, for instance, and other good Tau players, was if you don't hit them hard and fast early, you are in so much trouble later. You need to take as much off the table as fast as you can. But I had to learn that the hard way.
Right.
And because I was thinking, oh, I'll play more cagey and stuff, and then all they do is get stronger every turn, and you're just like, wait a minute, this is not working.
And I think that probably was less fun for people, right? Because it just really punished you super hard for not knowing some things. So let's talk about a different army that maybe. I want to talk about one.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about now?
I would like.
Excuse me.
I would really. They're so wacky, and I know we've already talked about them a little bit. Let's talk about AdMech.
AdMech.
What is to the left? Just
to the left of.
There you go.
There
Perfect.
you go. Yep. Adeptus Mechanicus.
So Adeptus Mechanicus has been in a weird spot for a while, where they got their rules that they got written were too good. They got nerfed down
really hard.
Their secondaries were just hot trash, and they're still okay. They're not great. But they're an army that I think is really cool. They're one of the few armies that has a pretty wide range of stuff that it can do. So let's talk about what they can do here, which is before it was like, it should have been called, in the grim darkness of the future, there is only extensive bookkeeping. Right? That was the message of AdMech, and we've simplified that.
Yes.
So now we've got these imperatives, right? And the imperatives, my impression is, I believe we can stay in these. I think you just get to move between them as you want to,
which is interesting.
And so one thing is, okay, so ranged weapons get heavy. So if they sit still, that army is going to light people up.
which is what they do, which should do.
Which should do. And then each time a ranged unit targets unit within half range is 1/2, and it's increased by 1. That's real good. And what I'll say is that is pretty spicy because it allows AdMech to do what they want to do, which is here's my big ranger brick, blah 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 blah. Right?
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't have one of the annoying things that AdMech had was oh, and by the way, here's this tremendous downside, which was okay, yeah, you have -1 to your
they get the detriment.
They get the detriment. I don't think anybody loved that, right? It's the same way in people playing Knights didn't love being dishonored, right? When it happened once in every 5 years.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. It was so much work to become dishonored. I've done it to somebody once, and it was just a blowout game, right? Yeah, let's talk about this. Somebody in the thread wants to talk about our let's go down and let's look at this gas attack.
Yeah,
rad bombardment.
Rad bombardment. Okay, let's get a little bit more there. There we go. So
two options. You choose your fate, right? The first option is a unit. So any unit you want to can say I'm going to go to ground. Okay, or that's not what they call it, but they can go hide.
Yep.
Okay, and they get battle shocked. You start the game battle shocked.
Whoa.
That doesn't feel great, right? Because you're not getting hit with stratagems, you're not having objective control, whatever.
Yep.
Or alternatively, you can just be like, okay, cool. On a 3-up, you do D3 mortal wounds to me, which is not for the faint of heart, right?
No.
Because it means that more than likely they're getting you for 2 mortal wounds. So if you're a big squad,
Yep.
it could cause you to take battle shock anyway, right?
True.
Or well, not take battle shock, but if they're gonna get shot at or something.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think that people were freaked out by it because anything that's indirect, people don't like. It's kind of spooky, right?
Yeah, it does weird things to the game.
It does weird things to the game. But what I'll say is, it tends not to have, as someone who has had many options, I play a lot of armies that are like, you could start the game by doing an orbital bombardment. And almost always it's like, it's bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a good play.
Please no.
And when my opponent does it in a tournament, I'm just like, okay, well, this game's going to be over quickly, right? And I don't say that in a rude way, but it is the honest truth.
Yeah.
Because it's a bad use of CP, right?
Yeah.
But getting it for free, I like. Also, it gives your opponent weird choices. And it feels, what I'll say is, it was one of the things that I always loved about AdMech was having these guys who were just insanely irradiated, right?
Yep.
And they're running around doing their thing. They're weakening people. They're doing all this kind of funny stuff. I think it is, if nothing else, a hilarious rule. And so let's talk about Vanguard. So Vanguard are not.
Oh, yes.
These are not even the one that most people play at the moment. But we noticed that their AP has gone down a little bit, which makes sense because then when we're in Conqueror,
That's crazy.
we got some more AP.
I'm just looking at all their stuff, but weapon skill and ballistic skill 4.
4 skill is not great, and their save went down. Their save is now a 5-up. And so what I'm anticipating is probably this is a little bit more of a horde army, right?
Yeah.
And then
Which makes sense. It feels like the way they should be played.
It feels like it is. When you read them in fluff, what they're always doing is marching 1,000,000 guys across the board, right? And then just shooting people to death. And that's cool, right? It is. I mean, it is
what they do. Right?
It is. I like this. I think there's a story in lore about them surviving a Tyranid attack because they just kept sending up everything with no biomass, and then eventually that just worked out. They were like, we'll just kill them all, and they can keep killing our Skitarii, and we'll just keep making more, right? And I think that's I have to remember. I think that's Styges. Anyway,
that's hilarious. Though.
Yeah, but I like that we have some cool stuff here. If you love Rust Stalkers just got faster. They can advance and charge.
Yes.
That's pretty hot. Rust Stalkers do a ton of mortal wounds. We don't know what their new data sheet looks like, but they've always been good.
Yep.
For the most part. And then below that we got some interesting stuff. We get to see Belisarius Call. I do not think he's the ticket. He wasn't this.
He wasn't even now, but
he's not now.
I don't think he ever will be a big deal. Maybe in 11.
He's cute. He's cute. He kind of has some good stuff. I don't know that.
It seems like GW continues in general to avoid making like Death Stars.
And that's good, right? I think when a lot of people heard we're going to attach guys to units, they got freaked out that what we were going back to was 7th, where we're just latching guys on, and all of a sudden, here's our unkillable unit and the guy attached to it.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Strength 9. That's too bad with the Eradicator Beam, but...
I think it's not bad.
Like, you're just thinking as something that it's definitely
sustained
not,
hits D3.
That's amazing.
That's
I agree.
real
I guess the
strong.
way to look at it is this is anti-infantry. This has nothing to do with killing vehicles. I mean, you could shoot it there, but that's not what you're doing.
And that's one of the conversations that we've been having, and that I've heard a lot about, is that anti-vehicle is a little bit more consistent. Anti-infantry is not. And so, if you have something dedicated to killing a vehicle, there's good odds you'll probably do it. But here, if we look at this, if you think about it, 3.5 hits, it's blast. So you shoot it at some big infantry blob. All of a sudden, they got 5 guys. We're adding 1 to that. So then we got 4.5 hits. Any 6 that we get turns into D3. All of a sudden, this starts looking pretty consistent. And the AP on it is at least imagine it this way: if you are shooting that thing in Conqueror at half range, that is 9 at -4, 3 per hit.
Okay.
You'll kill Terminators with that for sure. Do we know for sure if Terminators now have a universal 4-up invuln? I think that's one.
We assume, but we don't know, right?
We don't know
because from so index wise, I think it will be universal. They're all the same.
Yeah.
I think once a codex has come out, then we're gonna start seeing stuff go different. But we've already seen Terminators from Death Guard being T6, but still having the same invulnerable save.
They've always had a 4-up though. My question is whether regular. Did we see a regular? We didn't see a regular. Maybe we did see a regular Terminator data sheet.
We did, but I don't think we saw it in this release. We saw it.
We did, and so let's not
we
go
saw it elsewhere.
But
so it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, I think that, and I think I'd maybe heard that was the case. That now we're just at a 4-up, which probably means I don't know what. One of my interesting questions is what Storm Shields look like, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Storm Shields were kind of a feel bad for a lot of people, and I think people will be happy to see that kind of.
Oh, that kind of go away.
But yeah, let's put it this way: being at a, well, you know what? Actually, something does already come in the way of that, which is, let's say you got a 1-up, you're sitting in cover, you're never getting cover, right?
Yeah,
so if they got -2, you're back to your 3-up. All of a sudden, that
true.
looks a lot less tasty, right?
Yep, that's a good point. Oh, there's 22. Don't mind me as I'm building some weapon-mounted things.
We like the Bulwark imperative here too, right? Where we just get a
effects. This in turn the model you has a 4-up invulnerable save. I mean, why wouldn't you not like
against
that?
if you got some 20
for
man
1 CP,
and you got a 20-man brick sitting out there.
That brick ain't dying.
That brick ain't dying. It's not Lucius, that's for sure. But
it'll lose a few, but it ain't. It's gonna stay.
It's gonna stay, and that is kind of what you're hoping for. And I think that's more sort of where AdMech is building. So I think that yes, AdMech got a worse ballistic skill. I think that what I'll say is, in a relative world where we are seeing ballistic skills go down or go up. Sorry, go in the direction where it's harder to hit. I guess I should say. I think I'm okay with that, and I think that especially if the army as a whole has ways to increase that, and and other armies aren't just surpassing them on that front.
Oh sure, yeah.
I do think it's weird that for some reason AdMech have a 4-up to hit and Guardians have a 3-up, but you know what?
Yeah, I mean it's a weird place, but I think about it as that. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad because I love my elves, but it is weird where. I mean, a lot of people noticed it, right? When they were like, what, the elves still have their 3s?
3-up, yeah.
But, I mean, if you got to think about it, like, Space Marines still have their 3. And elves have always been able to hold their own against Space Marines as a general rule. So I don't find it too offensive. No,
I don't think it's a huge problem.
And there's still glass hammers. And they have to keep that, right, to some degree. It's hard to be a glass hammer if you can't hit things.
True. Yeah, no, and that, I think, I'll be interested to see, too. It could be the case that Guardians are just, they're kind of prohibitively expensive at the moment, and maybe they kept that.
But when they got sustained hits D3 and stuff, that's going to make up for a lot.
It is.
I mean, how much you want to bet? Like, that you can easily hit, and then you roll, and you're like, oh, look, I got 2 additional hits. If you do that a couple times, you've made up for anything you missed.
100%. And also, being able to, that heavy rule, I think, is going to be very effective, right? Where you're just sitting there saying, okay, well, I'm in... I'm in Conqueror Imperative, and so now I've got extra AP. I'm hitting on 3s. I'm just sitting still and annihilating you, and there's not really anything that prohibits that. I think AdMech looks good. It looks good at 2.
I think they look balanced.
I think they look balanced, and I think that's a nice look on it. Let's talk about something that, if you don't mind, let's talk about one that was pretty universally panned. Let's talk about Leagues of Votann.
Oh God, this one. So I'm part of the Leagues of Votann group. I'm sure you are as well. There are people actively selling Votann right now. They're like, I'm done. I'm selling my army, dude. Honestly, even Tau have been going up for sale. I've seen people selling their Tau armies. This is if you've been interested in Leagues of Votann, you're interested in Tau, and there's a good chance that you can get one off eBay real cheap.
And I will say, in to give context,
Yes.
the same day that the Votann thing went up,
Yes.
I went and bought more Votann models, and we'll talk about why.
Sure. Yeah.
Because okay, so and that's not to say that the Votann release doesn't look pretty mild. It does.
Yeah.
The Eyes of the Ancestors. Okay, what do we do here? We add.
They really nerfed it. It's lost the because it had like 4 levels to it before, right? Wasn't it like 3 or 4 levels?
Well, it was auto wounding. It was various forms of auto wounding. Now this looks a little bit more, in a way, sort of like Old Town marker lights with very limited benefits. So
that's right.
So the first one is that we're gonna if we grudge you. Right. If we grudge you, which
it's gonna happen.
And the way that we grudge somebody is they destroy a Leagues of Votann unit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming there are other ways to add these
because characters and stuff normally give it out for
free.
Yeah,
we I don't think we've seen a call data sheet, and that probably we're gonna see something like that in there. So yes, what it does is it gets the army back to a 3 ballistic skill. Because spoiler alert, we're on a 4. At least for most of this. On the land fort. The land fort, unfortunately, I mean, I think that the complaints against the Magna Rail are valid, that's just hitting on a 5, right? And it's much worse. But so this is clearly not what they were hoping for. They really like their auto wounding. I do think adding 1 to wound rolls is pretty spicy.
That's at least that's good.
It's good. I think that having to get to 2 judgment tokens, we'll see how easy it is to add them.
Especially when you're smacking things that are high toughness. And now at least you can wound them on 4s instead of 5s and 6s, which is really good. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for it. So I mean,
let's talk about why I bought some.
Yeah, tell us more about why.
Let's talk about why I bought some, because I'm not just deranged. I'm not just. I'm not. I mean, I might be, but that's not unrelated to this particular topic. Which is, so here is my thinking.
Okay, go for it.
I think that GW. Would like to sell some Votann models.
They would.
And I think that the way they conceived that they would sell Votann models is right now, Votann is in a weird place that I actually think is incorrect for their build. Which is right now, because of the way that everything panned out, and say what you will about the protest vote, right, against Tau. I think everybody was glad not to have something really busted in the meta, but probably didn't feel great for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because of that, where we're at now is they play like an elite army. You are paying Space Marine prices for dwarves.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think that what GW wants to do is really radically drop the points on these guys. And then say, okay, now you're running 20-man dwarf squads. Now you're running big units of bikes. It feels more like a horde army. The land fortress, it has some spooky weapons, but what you're really using that for is, wham, here's all of these relatively cheap berserks that I've delivered. Here's my.
Since we're gonna have that army-wide get out and charge and stuff and move and all that. Yes, I agree with you.
Will they mess that up?
Yes.
Quite possibly. Right, yeah, quite possibly. Right.
We agree that they'll probably mess that up.
They'll probably mess up. The points might be off. But if they're not, I actually think that this is just fine. And that's a big old if, right? Because I think that again, it's trusting in GW to get the points right, and we're trusting in that on Eldari too. Because if Eldari, it was very cheap, it's going to be a really rough beginning to 10th. I think there's no argument about that. Yeah. If these are too expensive, they're going to have a really bad beginning to 10th. Because I agree, none of this is super hot. And what's their stratagem? It's like. If you scroll down just a wee bit, we see the land for. They showed us 2 that hypothetically we should have been interested in. The conversion beam was ice cold. I'm super uninterested in that. Admittedly, reactive reprisal. We get to unit from your army selected as a target of 1 or more attacks. Can shoot as if it were your shooting phase. That's pretty tasty. At 2 CP, 2 CP is quite a bit.
Yep.
But as a guy who right now has Lehman Russes that when you kill them are just almost as unpleasant as if they were alive. I will say that this is an annoyance. Like, for example, one of the things I have to avoid as a gotcha right now is playing a game with Jack.
Yeah.
And it was a different, maybe it was Jack or maybe it was somebody else.
Sure.
And I said, don't kill that Russ. He was playing Matt Anderson. And he said, why? And I said, because if you do, what's going to happen is you got these guys you just moved on to the objective to steal it and to do an action. I'm just going to blow them up. Right?
Yeah.
And so now they can do that at various times throughout the game. Feels pretty strong. Right? Now, again, I think that, and so I guess what I'm saying with any of this, and I think it's what you're saying too, is we are always, until we see more, going to be able to say, okay, well, there will come a moment where I might just say, well, Votan's just overpriced and this looks bad, right?
Yep.
It's not right now though, because I think that I think that it's worth anticipating that they could get it right on the points.
Yeah.
And that could make a lot of this markedly less good. The Eldari release might look crazy hot, but then a Farseer might be 120 points. Right,
exactly.
And then it's like, okay, well, we're not, maybe Doom and Guide's not in there. We don't know. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We know that. Well, it looks like Guide is there in a sense, but Doom is not.
Right.
So
and Doom's the hot one. We all know that.
Yeah,
right?
Doom is the hot one. So it's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how our artillery plays out, because that's been really big for us throughout 9th and really keeping our army alive and keeping people out of an area. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of really. It's hard to put our finger on. Like, I'm still building my craft world, still trying to get them up and running while getting like everything else done, right? So at this point, I'm not even sure what I want to play going into 10th, because there's so many possibilities,
and there's a lot of good ones. I think that we haven't seen anything that I would say yet. I was like,
I really want to see. So no, I'm excited about tomorrow because I want to see the Chaos Knights.
Yep.
I want to know because I've got over 6,000 points as Chaos Knights. I can field all sorts of variations, so I'm excited about that. And I want to see Drakari, because I do love Drakari. I'm gonna, like, if there are elves, you might as well sign
you're
me
into
up.
it, yeah.
So I want to see them, because honestly, we're not going to see Harlequins unless they decide to surprise us.
We're not going to see Harlequins.
I don't think they're going to single them out. I think they're more likely to single out Yannari than they are to single out Harlequins, because of the.
Well, that would be a big signal that they're not going to be a monetary faction anymore, a mono faction.
Yeah. So if we don't see them during this, then I think we got our answer.
Right.
And we're fingers crossed, right? But let's go ahead and let's see what another one we can check out. That would be a big interest. But of course, I'm also excited about orcs.
Well, yeah, we haven't seen orcs yet, and
orcs leadership is where I'm. Like, my big fear when it comes as an orc player is how this. Rally, command phase, battle shock stuff's gonna work, because orcs just have notoriously bad leadership.
Sure.
And knowing the fact that potentially half your army's in battle shock from the get go almost is it makes it kind of
maybe we get and maybe we get a commissar effect where they're just like, all right, we'll just kill one of them and that'll get them back in line.
Yeah,
right?
So
that tradition is certainly exists with
the strategy with knocking heads, stratagem, D3 mortal wounds. And then that once per battle, they can just ignore battle shock. I mean, but that generic won't allow them to do at least on one unit. So there's that. But it just makes it interesting. But I think, let's see what.
I think the thing that people are really hoping for while we're thinking about what we want to put up here. Is that I know a lot of orc players, Joshua Thomas included, are very interested in seeing that orcs have more than a mono build, right? Because
flexibility,
a little bit of something that's not Goth pressure, that's not death skulls, right? I think
not just vehicles and not just melee, but a combination would be nice, right? They definitely in 9th edition struggle to balance orcs, and it's not balanced.
They're still
in a sense of variety.
They're still a very strong army.
Yes,
but they really kind of do one thing, just like World Eaters does currently. And
World Eaters do it better.
Do they though? I mean,
I feel like they do.
World Eaters have moments where they just run out of models and fall over. Orcs don't have that happen as quickly.
Yeah, true.
And I will say that orc secondaries, for all the ways in which World Eater secondaries are good, most of the World Eater secondaries oblige you to interact.
Yeah,
orcs don't necessarily. Right?
Yeah. I mean, get the good bits. The problem is, like, if I'm fighting Astra Militarum, you've got easy ways to deal with my easy point scoring.
Yes, I do.
Where other armies don't. So it just depends on the matchup for sure. But let's take a closer look at Necrons, because we had
Necron questions too.
Yeah, we had Necron questions, and we have lots of Necrons. So let's look at them directly.
So reanimation
protocol.
So so does it say on there, if you're at the end of your command phase, Each unit. So you can still you know all of you who are out there who are like, oh man, I really want those shenanigans before I score my points.
Yeah,
I think you still get it as far as I can tell. Right?
I mean, because usually scoring happens at the end of your command phase. If this continues to be true, then this will only aid you in stuff. And I guess the question is, if a unit if Necron unit reanimates back up past halfway, for them, I guess the battle shock's done. Like they don't have to deal with it anymore, right? Because they're above half strength. They're probably the only army outside of maybe Astra Militarum reinforcement shenanigans that might be able to get out of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I mean, unless we don't know what the Marine APOC does yet. So there's a world in which maybe that helps, right? Or,
yeah.
But you're right. There's ways to pop up past that number. Our leadership is, as we mentioned, peculiarly low, right? We get this
low. Let's see. Command protocol Necron character model is leading this unit. The time model makes an attack. Add 1 to the hit roll. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I mean, it's what they've got currently. And so.
But what's in the unit?
It's in the unit.
And versus what I like is it's not a big aura. It only affects the unit.
Which is where we're trending, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I like that it's not just this big bubble of I'm helping everything. But let's scroll down a little bit. What is the leadership on this one? Leadership is 7+. Okay, so it's very much in line with everyone else.
It's not. Yeah, it's not some big.
I think the Eldari was better leadership. I think they're a 6+. Honestly,
good grief.
They broke a lot of rules, where people always notice when the elves break the rules, everyone notices.
Well, yeah, and so that's odd to me. It's odd to me, but I guess it's and maybe we don't have everything yet. Maybe it's the case that Necrons, it's like, well, you can't get battle shocked if you're within range of something. Right?
Yeah, and then of course they can potentially regen out of it.
Yeah.
So that's also nice because then they're like, well, that's fine because we regen and we don't get battle shock.
What's our ballistic skill on the monolith?
The monolith ballistic skill, looks like it's 3. There's that 3 or 2. Oh no, that's a 2 on that, whatever that is. Weapon skill 2. Never mind.
Oh, it's weapon skill
ballistic skill 3. So it's got a weapon skill 2. That's amazing.
It's actually in line with what it is currently because the monolith auto hits.
Yes.
Or it auto hits.
It auto hits with that one weapon. Yeah,
with its
forgot about that.
Gate. Let's go scroll down a bit. I think our warriors went to 4. So previously, warriors had been a 3 up to hit, and then you could hit them with the command protocols.
Okay, yeah.
Now it looks like we're looking at a 3 up ballistic skill, 4 up weapon skill, 4 up ballistic skill, 4 up weapon skill. Yeah, and our ability is, and so those guys look much more like they're less of an offensive tool and more of a
definitely offensive.
Yeah. They might be offensive, but they're more about sort of holding the position than they are about just shooting somebody to death. I think that's going to be less common, right?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. The Necrons just their reanimation protocol definitely need to be reworked. They did. We'll see how good it really is when it's in play, but it sounds good.
I mean, I think that people are going to find it to be more consistent.
Look at this ballistic skill 3 on this Doomsday cannon. So that's, so it looks like Necrons have a lot of ballistic skill 3, which for being an older race.
I wonder if it's primarily on their vehicles where we're getting those 3s, and it's heavy. That's cute. They're hitting on
huge. That can hit on 2s if it doesn't move.
Absolutely. So it's sitting there hitting on 2s. Hitting on 2s were blast. So previously that was something we were was worried about. So D6 + 1.
Yep.
Better. Strength 15 better than what it was.
Yeah,
it's
going to hurt vehicles. It's going to hurt elites. It's
right. If they remain stationary,
super good.
Devastating wounds. Now that is going to be a little bit conditional because again we're fishing for those 6s.
Yep.
But you get enough hits on it, you don't care, right?
Yeah,
and so with that that blast, especially so that could be really interesting. It does. That feels like a relatively consistent anti-vehicle weapon because -4. But again, one of the things we'll say about vehicles we've seen so far is, you're still getting your save, right? There's nothing I think
there's only a few AP5s they've showcased, but we know AP5s exist because we've seen them.
We saw the harpoon. And we saw the rail rifle.
The rail rifle. So we know they exist. I mean, Chaos Knights have the relic, the Dominos. If it still exists, it's the D3 +6 damage AP5 and D3 shots. So I'd like to. That's why I'm really excited to see if they showcase that because they like showing the death gun from almost every army. Like this is gonna kill something. Here, let me showcase.
Yep.
I mean, look at this. The Void Dragon. I mean, that is somebody. I mean, weapon skill 2 on that beast. No, weapon skill 3 on the sweep. On the range attack is 2.
The anti-vehicle 2 pluses.
Ooh,
that's
dude,
pretty unpleasant.
AP3. There's some. Yeah, it's gonna.
He ain't gonna kill infantry with him though.
Not easily.
Not easily. You're gonna if you
10 attacks will kill some stuff, but not. But it won't be just wrecking.
But you're swinging on Pathfinders.
Yeah.
Weirdly, let's say that you got that -1 to wound on there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're hitting on your weapon skill 3. So you're hitting on. Let's math it out. So you get 10 attacks.
Yep.
You're losing 3, right? So you're getting 7. They have -1 to wound, so you're wounding them on 3s. So you're losing another 2 to 3, and then they're saving a couple of them because they're 5-ups. All of a sudden, your Spear of the Void Dragon that's supposed to kill a huge number of infantry.
Yeah, exactly.
It's killing 3 or 4 guys, right? And that's interesting to me because it suggests that I think we're going to have fewer instances where, for example, right now when you're in combat with Abaddon, you're just like, well, I guess that's done, right? Whatever's there is probably gone, right? I think that we're going to have less of that. I think that it is much less consistent, and I know that's what I heard from people at the Games Workshop event you went to, which was that a lot of stuff would stay in combat for a long time because they're just even the Screamer killer has trouble killing stuff.
Exactly, and that's something I noticed. Like 10 Space Marines, you would think are just done from this big monster Screamer killer with 10 attacks.
Yep.
And it took 3 turns.
Yep.
I mean, of course they're making saves, but still, I mean, even then it's 2 turns if they maybe weren't rolling as well. So
right.
It was pretty surprising to me. Amy, if you want, we can switch over to the leaked rules. We're gonna kind of head over that way. But now, on this leaked datasheet stuff, the first thing I want to point out is this is not officially confirmed because a few things that were said to me at Warhammer Fest has already been proven to be misspoken.
Sure.
But the one thing that we don't see here is when it talks about engagement range. When I was at Warhammer Fest, I was told that engagement range was going from 1 inch to a 1/2 inch.
Okay.
And that no longer was going to be 1 inch. Now, they show lots of examples in here of different things, but they don't really, you can't tell distance between these pictures. You can't tell what engagement range is. And they, of course, the rules that we would love to see in that were not leaked. So we don't have official confirmation on engagement range. But if it's true, 1/2 inch will change a lot about charges.
What we have, I think we have fight phase rules in here. So let's look at them.
We do. We can go down to the fight phase. But I went through it. I read all this unless I missed it.
Which is, I mean, look, I'm not saying it isn't. I mean, so we go down, we learn a little bit about random characteristics. We learn a little bit weapons. And that's largely unchanged.
Yeah.
Right. We do learn a little bit further down some interesting things that have changed. Right. Yeah.
Both players gain a CP, so that's the same.
And one of the things we still don't know
yes.
is what people are actually starting with for CP. That is still
unclear. Yeah, we have no idea what your starting CP is. That's correct. It's convenient that, like I said, those first 8 pages that would tell us these little key points were not included. That's why I think this is a GW leaked.
Sure.
Intentional. It's staged to be, not because it's keeping it. Literally, if it was me and I had this book and I was going to leak it, I would have every single page. Sure. I would be leaking everything. It would be like, blah. So it just seems too controlled of a leak, leaving out key components that would really let us see this game.
I don't know. Maybe the executives are coming back into the room, and so they had to.
No. If you look at the seat, he's sitting in a car.
He's just sitting in a car.
He's he's literally having a smoke break.
This is before he got killed. This is before they found him in his car and killed him.
He messed up. He clicked some of the wrong photos.
Absolutely. Right now they see. Okay, so we learn about attached units. We learn about below half strength.
Yep.
Let's talk about things. We'll keep scrolling until we find some things that kind of
movement phase. Yep. We know about that.
Yep. And so, hang on. Engagement range. It's up there.
Did you see it for real?
Unless you. Oh no, sorry. That's just okay.
So it uses a keyword, but with no definition behind it. So all we know is engagement range, which we all know right now is 1 inch. But supposedly we're going to AOS engagement range, which makes charges harder because it's 1/2 inch. No more like I'm 8.9 inches away, so I only need to roll an 8. Now you would, or you roll whatever it is. Instead of a 9, you need an 8. Now you're going to need a 9, even at 8.9, because the fact that 1/2 inch is going to make a difference.
Let's talk about one thing that's not included here, but that we do know has changed, which is if you are a 40K player right now, one of the things that you know well, if you played enough games, is Rapping and trapping, baby.
Yes.
And
doing your tri-point.
You tri-point people, and that's been around since there were ways in which it was diminished, because it used to be that it was just a death knell if it happened.
Yeah.
But now you can get punished for 2 CP and get out of it, right? And
that desperate breakout.
But you desperate breakout. But now we're taking a test, and so if we can now move over models, but there's a trade-off.
Yep.
On a 1 or a 2, we're gonna lose some guys,
yep.
right?
Better than all of them, though.
And I really like that. I actually think that that's great. I think that, if you have a tank and you're like, I gotta get out of here, right?
Yeah.
The 1/3 chance that it's just gonna blow up is very unpleasant. You certainly don't want to do it. But if you're like, you know what, this just has to happen, and if it does explode, I guess so be it.
Yeah.
I think that that's a perfectly reasonable trade-off. It also it gets rid of some of that feel bad where you're like, man, I just can't shoot with anything in this game because everything's getting locked up.
Well, that's the thing that's interesting, though. Sorry to kind of interrupt.
No, okay.
Is now vehicles can be shot while in combat,
which is very strange.
Shoot out of combat.
So, well, as a guard player, I'm very used to that. Other than if you have a blast weapon where all of a sudden you can't, and maybe we still have turret weapons, I don't know, right? But
yeah,
I did think that was a pretty dynamic change. Now big guns don't tire cuts a different way, which is you can get shot, but now it's not. It's it's -1 to hit you if you're in melee.
Yeah, which is fair.
Which is fun because also it means that let's say that somebody is shooting at you, right? Yep. And you're like, or is gonna shoot at you next turn. And you're like, man, I gotta get out of this. I'm gonna charge, right? It suddenly gets a lot more interesting, especially because now we have tank shock is back, which I think at least I'm very excited about. So let's see what else is in here. We got fallback moves. We have advanced moves. All of that is pretty standard. Yep. I didn't see anything I didn't know there.
That desert breakout is definitely interesting. I like how they show it. If you scroll down just to the picture right there, I mean that's just showing it, which is interesting. It's definitely a risk. I think if you know the unit's gonna die, because you can roll bad and watch the whole unit die. You
absolutely can, just like when you're getting out of a transport after exploded.
I don't know what there's got to be a good dang reason to do it. Maybe you're falling back to a point, kind of situation, and who knows, right? But it's hard to say.
You're not doing it willy-nilly.
No, for sure. It's not something you just want to do. But it is nice to know it's there.
And it's nice that it doesn't need to be CP anymore to do it. It's nice that it has its inherent risks that you take.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it's not just like, okay, well, I can definitely wrap and trap this guy. He doesn't have 2 CP. Now he's locked in.
Yeah.
I think that it's nice to give that variation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. So this is further down. We got this guy's jeans. He's driving a Ford. So then our movement, this changed a little bit, right? Which is now we in the spirit of simplified. If you are moving over some pipes, right? No subtraction. We just can roll right through that. As soon as we start moving up, right, up a level.
Yeah. Now
we got to measure, right?
Which it's good. This kind of falls back to like elf. Some of the elves get to ignore these kind of rules. So I'm curious to see how much we get to ignore. That's one of the fun things when you're playing elves. You're like, I don't even have to worry about these rules. They don't count to me.
Right. Yep. And I think I think that it's interesting. I think that that's nice. Again, it becomes easier to anticipate distances.
Well, they simplified charges with flying units too.
They did.
So now you do fly when you charge. So versus you have to measure like over terrain and down. You just.
And I was actually I was surprised then because they had a specific rule for charging while flying.
Yeah.
Right, and it said, well, I was like, I'm looking for the moment where they're going to say, okay, you can move over, and it was there. They had it. Right. So flying again, I don't think there's anything too surprising there. It's basically the same rule we've currently got. I don't think most people were confused about how flying works, so that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
How much are they really going to change that, right? And it looks like they didn't change it really at all. So
reinforcements did get simplified. So our rule to roll down to this, before it was, I will tell you, I feel like I've been gotching people with basic reinforcement rules, very experienced players, because they're like, oh, you can never come in my deployment zone. No, that's not right. I can't come in. I can't come in off your board edge. But if I'm me, here's what I do. Here's a little diagram of your board edge, right? Like this, right? All of a sudden, I'm not going to come in off right here, but I'm going to come in right here, right? Because it's off my board edge.
Yeah.
Right? It's off this board edge that's absolutely legal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, oh, you still got directly behind me. Yeah, I did, right? Now we're simplified. So what happens is, if we have a reserve unit, right? You and we also open it up a little bit. You can come in on turns 4 and 5, I think, right?
That's the one thing like I gotta see with Manny. Like when I was at Warhammer Fest, he did the same thing where he was like he used his board edge that met that other guy's board edge and brought in a Terminator unit like right here on this,
which you can do, right? You can absolutely
Exactly.
do. And I think that it felt like a little bit like a gotcha. But now what we do is they are set up. Made a normal move. They are set up on the battlefield. And so although they count as having made a move by the end of the battle, okay, so we'll go down a little bit. There's actually another set of rules we want to see for this below our beautiful AdMet guy. Okay, maybe it's later, but what I do know is it's simplified.
Yeah,
it's a little easier. We'll keep going. So with shooting phase, there was some stuff that was a little surprising here. We repeat for the next unit. We got lone operative. That's obviously a new thing, right? Where we can start where we can't shoot somebody so we've simplified one of the most confusing rules in 40K, which is character rules, shooting rules. Because people are like, oh, I can shoot that. No, I mean, I still have people who are very confused. About when they can shoot my command squad, because they're like, oh, it's 5 guys, I can definitely shoot. No, you can't. It's stand next to a tank. Isn't the tank a character? Yeah, you still can't shoot me, right? like I get it. That's confusing, right?
Yeah.
So now what we're saying is, if you have a leader, range attack 12 inches. Oh well, what if something's closer? We still don't care, right?
Yeah.
Now
exactly.
it's 12 inches. It's easy. If you're attached to a squad, we can you can shoot at the squad, whatever, right?
Yep, I like it.
I think we're happier to see that rule go, because there was nothing more confusing.
Every time I played somebody, even at a tournament, someone would be like, "Oh, so I can shoot them," and you're like,
I think that people are genuinely confused.
It was definitely not a well written situation.
It was not a well written situation. It was not a well understood situation.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So you're right. Now big guns never tire. We can shoot monsters and vehicles at things. We're still -1 to do so.
Yep.
And we are -1 to be hit. That's kind of cute, right?
Yeah.
Locked in combat, right? I don't think there's anything too exciting there. They just kind of defined it for us. Below that, people wondered what stealth did, and I said it's -1 to hit, and they said no, it's not, and I was freaking right. It's right there, -1 to hit, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's what I guessed too. When someone asked me beforehand, when only knew the keyword, and it was an easy guess.
Right.
Yeah, it's like -1 hit.
-1 hit. And that, by the way, is one of the things that makes AdMet quite interesting, is Belisarius Call's handing that out like candy, which might be a reason that he sees some play. Suddenly you're Styges again, where you're just like, okay, everything's just -1 to hit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we know we now know what the stealth keyword is. That's great. Mm-hmm. Further down, charge phase. You want to talk about something that's being revamped? This is something that Steve and I were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I watched many videos about how to take advantage of the fight phase, and there were all sorts of weird things you could do. You could charge units and then move out of engagement range so they couldn't fight you. You could charge the wrong thing and then move towards a different unit. Mm-hmm. Like really weird stuff, right?
Yeah,
and John Lennon had figured out every one, and I was like, cool, John Lennon, show me how to do it, and he did. Right? And so credit where credit's due. I think that I think nobody is particularly sad to see that go the way of the dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to move towards them, but also you get a cute little thing where you can move towards their objectives, right? Which feels real good. I think that that's fine. I don't have any real objection to that. It makes sense from a fluff perspective that your guys aren't just like, wait, what's out there, right? Like they're obviously there to get something. Let's go get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm kind of have, like I both like and hate at the same time, but it's kind of trying to be open minded, right? It's too easy to get bogged down in, oh, I just hate it and I don't have a good reason besides it's change.
Right.
So trying to keep an open mind, because I mean honestly the game is changing so much that we're gonna be in a lot of ways starting over.
Sure.
Stuff that we take for granted now or things that we normally do, we're just not gonna have anymore. So it's definitely I think, like I said, it comes back to what I said before. It's gonna freshen the game up for guys like yourself and others who get so many hours of games in, so many games like myself in. It really it's at the point where you're kind of bored.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things I was mentioning about spontaneity, right? Is
Yeah.
is we get a little bit more on the table. Let's see if they got your engagement range in here while we're thinking.
I've looked everywhere, but let's keep looking because they're
Okay.
showing the distance up.
Charging with flying models, they tell us that we can move.
The closest they show here is that it's 10 inches away. You have to roll 10. They don't give us any kind of.
Well, it's good. Here, I think when we get to the fight phase, it'll tell us, right? So
Scroll down,
fight phase, the ones that are eligible,
up.
it is within engagement range of one or more enemy models, and
it doesn't say.
and it does not tell
I
us.
read this part too.
And actually, this is interesting because
Yes.
so this is one that the one I was thinking of is my game with Jack.
Yes.
Jack Kolarski. He was going to fight me with his dreadnought. So the dreadnought was already engaged with some guys. He was already fighting them.
Yes,
right.
Understood.
And I pointed out to him. I said, if you kill enough of these guys, I'm gonna just pull you out of combat, right?
Yep.
And it's those kind of little things that still remain, right?
Yeah.
That's still something that exists where you're like, okay, I got to be careful. This is the order I got to fight in,
Yep.
right? Just like you got to have target priority. So you're right. I mean, it's sad that if you have some skills in particular phases, maybe the simplifying kind of, might dilute some of that advantage.
Yep.
But a lot of stuff you still have to do the right way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I was wrong. So we really still don't know what engagement range is.
Yeah, we don't. And that, like I said, the whole reason it even came up is because, like, I asked the guy, because when he said, okay, you have to end your charge to the closest model base to base, my question was, well, what's engagement range now?
Right.
And that's when he said, well, I don't have the rule book with me, but from my understanding, it's a half an inch. So it's not 100% confirmed. It's off of this, this gentleman who, he asked not to be recorded because he was like, well, if I get recorded and I'm wrong, I'm in trouble with GW.
Sure.
So we couldn't even record what he was saying, sadly. But that, it is what it is.
Right, and one can't sit around the table the whole day, and I mean, I guess one could, and just
could,
and just be like,
what happens is it was a 3-hour wait to get through that line, and you could stand on the outside of and listen to each game, and you could do that for sure. Like I was telling people, I got lucky because I was in line for maybe 20 minutes at the most, and they said, we need one more person. Who wants to come?
They were like it was time for the like when you're at Adventureland and they're trying to fill up the whole boat.
Yeah,
and they're like, we need one more guy, and you were like, it's me, right?
Yep.
You got to ride the log ride. I guess.
Exactly, and definitely didn't have to wait forever to do it.
Right.
So I was grateful for being an energetic American who was like, me.
Yeah, absolutely. We always yell the loudest, and the other guys are like, no, I'll have a crumpet. Right? Absolutely, I get it
for sure. But yeah, so it's I don't know. It's like I think they definitely. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because the fact that we're going to have this 3-inch pile-in to get as many units in within or within half an inch of a half inch or whatever it's going to be is going to be really interesting.
And getting to turn off consolidate is strange.
That is
very strange.
Clearly,
right?
They thought it was a problem.
Well, I think that they didn't like people. I think it was sort of a feels bad when you had your Space Wolves and your Space Wolves were like, okay, cool, I charged you, so I'm gonna just activate and move an extra 12 inches. And people were like, whoa, wait, what?
Well, yeah, exactly. And Harlequins did the same thing, right? I would charge you, and then I would get 5-inch, pile in, 5-inch consolidate. Now I'm like completely behind you, kill your unit, and then tag something that you don't want me to tag, and then they're like, what the, yeah. So
and you still get some trades in that regard. You can still move towards an objective, right? Like that's I think the concession they give is, well, if you get to consolidate if you can get to something or you can get to an objective.
So what I see, what I'm hearing is basically, if your opponent makes a mistake and has units too close together,
or too close to an objective,
you can still ping pong your way across the board a bit.
No argument.
It's gonna just mean that your opponent will have to. Well, they'll learn quickly, right, not to do it. But for opponents who are not quick on that, there's still going to be opportunities to take advantage of people's mistakes.
Yep.
And then the only thing that I'm concerned about is there is a bit of a culture of this: tell your opponent they made a mistake before they make it, so that you're playing like honorably.
Right.
But in situations like that, it's so hard to be like, well, are you sure you want to move there? Because then I can do all this. I don't know if I want to be telling people all that.
Well, and I
giving away what I'm doing, but maybe
and
I'm just a jerk.
And I think that there is a certain degree of your opponent is obliged to know the rules, right? And so sometimes that's the line that I draw is, The difference between those two things, one is, I think it's one thing if you're like, they're about to make they're about to make something that they can't actually do, or for example, you know, the one where I was like, well, I'm gonna, if you kill me, I'm gonna shoot you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fair play to tell them that, right?
Yeah,
but
that's not a bad thing to do.
But if you have a better play, that if you're like, well, there's just a better play and they're not going to do it, no, that's on them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I'm not going to help you beat me.
No, you could move if for example, it's like, well, you could move 3 inches towards this objective. You're obliged to know that. Those are core rules.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's a different thing.
That's a good point. That's a good way to look at it, for sure. Because you know, that was the one thing that surprised me. Like when I was, you know, I got to play in England, and you know, of course, I got told by a few English people that when English people show up to a tournament, they're serious. It's gonna be a higher skill level,
sure.
you know. And then what I found was it was the same skill level.
I suspect that's true.
You know, I found people making mistakes, like for example, you know, you got your little bike. Right, here's the board edge, and you're supposed to stay here, you know, inside the board edge, and you find people hanging models off,
sure,
trying to get around things. I'm like, no, you don't get to do that.
100%.
You know, so you still saw people doing the same mistakes you see in the U.S. So, yeah, agreed. I think you're right. There are certain things that you're just obliged to know. If you don't know, you're going to learn through experience.
And maybe one of the things about simplified but not simple is your opponent can feel a little more obligation that your opponent knows everything from the rule book, because there aren't 87 pages.
The only thing I see right here, so let's scroll up a little bit on this photo. So this is like everything like that's kind of come in, charged, and gone.
Do we have a commentary on this above this?
I think we have a little bit here. My only thing about this is where people can, if you go up a little higher.
For a termagant to be selected to fight, the unit must pile in and all of its models move up to 3 inches in order to blah 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 blah.
And
things
closer to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base contact if they can. Note that 2 termagants are already in base-to-base contact with the foe. So it doesn't say, and after making their pile-in moves, 5 of the termagants are within engagement range of the.
Well, we can probably see that there. So
so
we go up just a touch.
Yeah, let's just go up a touch. So here we go. So if we had a termagant here, we would know their.
Well, so with B, right? Yeah. Are we saying that the blue are with
the blues are the ones that touch base to base, and then the reds are the ones that are eligible to fight because they're within engagement range. It says now, based on that, I would say engagement range is probably an inch. Maybe a half inch, depending on how termagant bases are. I'm not really 100%, but
termagant bases are 25, so they're very small.
Yeah. So either way, we at least know that if you're touching a model that is already in base-to-base combat, it appears that you can fight. So, but then anything out, you can't. That's still pretty much like we now know it.
Right.
So it doesn't look any different.
If there's there might be a finesse thing here, but again, we don't really have the details.
Yeah.
And my suspicion is it's probably the same. I don't think there was a big problem with engagement range previously, and so I would be surprised if we made big alterations there. But you know, you never know.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a little more interesting stuff that goes as we go down a little further into some of our keywords and things.
Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit. I think maybe what we should definitely talk about is our strats, because I think the strats look dynamically different. And one of the things we know is that the new faction rules, we've been told, are going to have maybe 6 per army, right? So we got our weapon abilities; those are great. In fact, one of the things that's that we can put on the Improbable thread here is we actually just got a sheet that is all the keywords. You want to know what Twin Link does. You want to know what Heavy does. You want to know what Lethal. If you were me reading Death Guard today, and we're like, "What's Lethal?" Hits, right?
While we're thinking of that, you know, we have our Discord link down on our YouTube. If you jump in there, we've got stuff being shared. We've got a nice batch of all the keywords and what they mean in there.
Good.
On top of that, we've got our hobby channels and all sorts of stuff. So you're welcome to join. And then if you join and link your YouTube account, then that'll get you into our monthly drawings that we're doing and things like that. So
get a ton of good info.
Yeah,
ton of good info, because there's one of the things that's happening right now with 10th is, you know, I think that some people are under the impression that we're going to be diving in day one, and a lot of people won't know what they're doing to an extent. But I think a lot of people are watching the reveals and all these things, and we're getting a lot of info in advance, and we're trading some ideas, and that's a great place to find a lot of info.
And I can tell you right now, the launch of 10th is going to be the best time to learn 10th because everyone is going to be playing as many games as can. We're going to be playing tons of games.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a big deal. So that leans into what's happening. I want to make a big announcement while we're here, and I'll make an announcement in Discord too, but we're going to be changing our streaming dates so that we're going to be going back to what we used to do, which is we're going to be going to Mondays for our hobby streams, and our Wednesdays will also be our battle report. We've decided that there hasn't been a huge interest in our battle reports right now because everyone's excited about 10th. Right. So we're going to just be doing hobby streams until 10th launches while we get ready, paint our models, build our armies, and just be excited to play and be able to bring you content. So lots of hobby streams going on, sharing our thoughts and feelings on any kind of a new updates and things like that that's happening. So keep that in mind. And then Fridays, we're going to be at JCD every Friday playing games, especially once 10th edition launches. We're going to be starting a 10th edition league over at JCD. So this is a great chance to learn the game, get some competitive games in, learn that how fun it is, learn about the fact that we want to win, but we also like getting along with each other. It's a very, the one thing I can say about Iowa is, at least from my experience, is it's very supportive.
100%.
There's several teams here, but we're all working together. We're all trying to get better because it's all Iowa.
Yep.
And so it's something to keep in mind. So if you're here in Iowa, lots of opportunities to learn, especially if you're in Des Moines. We're all helping each other. The more people that are competitive here, the better all of us get. The more
games you can get in, the more practice you can get, the stronger the player base. I had a guy today who, after I posted on Iowa Wargamers, right, over on Facebook, he got a hold of me and he said, man, I really want to start playing. Can you coach me up? And I said, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. And not 70%, but 100.
100%. And part of what is great is that, for example, we went to KC this weekend, right? We were short a guy, so the captain for another team came.
Oh, nice.
We all got a bunch of info off that. We had a big streaming conference. I know the folks you were going to go with are all scrimmaging against another team, which is super exciting, right? So I think a lot going on. And so what I would say is, there's always going to be times that we're going to be playing heated competitive games, but everyone here is about getting in, learning the game, getting stronger, knowing, so that when we go to those events, we can really represent, which is exciting, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then I've got to make a decision if I'm going to KC or not. I haven't officially made up my mind, but
I better be going because they're going to know.
Well, yeah. Well, I had to drop out of the team event because of family health reasons. Of course, I managed to wrap things up and come back, but I'm not going to be a jerk and demand my spot back. I'm okay with someone else having my spot. I just hadn't decided if I was going to just play in the singles. You know what I mean or not?
Why not?
Yeah, like I said, I'm feeling a little burnt on 9th. I actually reached out to the GW coordinators over there and just seeing if maybe I could help out with setup and breakdown and maybe do a little judging, since I know a lot of the rules.
I'm always judging.
Yeah, I know, but yours is more of like, is that
vindictive.
What you wore? That's what you wore?
Yeah, it is. And it's way more vindictive.
I'm like, that's what you wore? A little more excited,
Yeah, no, mine is definitely vindictive, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So, either way, ultimately, keep in mind, if you're still here, sub to help us keep growing. If you like what we're doing, tell your friends.
If you strongly disagree with all of the things that we've said,
also sub and
then absolutely. Then you can add. You can tell us all the reasons.
Yeah, and join our Discord and tell us how much you don't like the things we're doing. I mean, I want to hear all about it so we can make me better.
Very interesting. I don't know that I'm going for that one, but yeah.
I might ban you if you're really negative.
But anyway, there's offers. There's offers on the table. I get it
for sure. But and then another big announcement this Sunday, first time we're streaming 30K. So we're going to be doing, we're starting out with, looks like twice a month is 30K. First one is starting this Sunday. We're going to be doing a narrative one. It's going to be World Eaters, culling World Eaters for narrative play. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're gonna be, like I said, we're filming it. We're just gonna try to add up. So honestly, even though I said Monday and Wednesday are our streaming content, I keep forgetting about our Horus Heresy Sundays, which will be starting here soon. We got a great bunch of guys, including myself, all working together to create that for you. And so hopefully you guys really enjoy it. What I like about Horus Heresy is a lot of the stuff we're seeing here coming into 40K is similar, so which is nice. And then on top of it, the game is brutal and really.
The game is brutal.
They just all it wants to do is kill you, and you kill your opponent. There is mission objectives and stuff, but most of it is, can you kill your opponent? And if so, you probably won.
And there are some crazy looking units for Horus Heresy. You should, and then people spend a lot of money and a lot of time on those things. They will put my wee castigator to shame.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned about the culture of 30K is, holy cow, they want you to paint things the way they're supposed to look. No, it's not like in 40K where you're just like, oh, I'm gonna just do whatever color and then call it this, or whatever. No. If it's Blood Angels, they better show up looking like Blood Angels from the time period with the correct armor and weapons. They're not.
So we're gonna see some cool stuff on stream.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
hopefully so. It's nothing like they're not a bad crowd, but they treat it like a historical game. They want it to be accurate, and I can appreciate that. And the idea is to be low stress, throw dice, have fun, and that's kind of the mentality. It's like reenacting something that only happened in books that I'm aware of, not in real life, but that's okay. Now, I think we're gonna probably just wrap up here. This was more of an impromptu, drop the competitive side and just stream. But I want to say again, thank you for coming and hanging out with us while we paint and build models, and just hear our kind of our fresh take, if you will, on what's coming. We're gonna continue this format on this next next Wednesday. We'll have at least 3 more armies to discuss. Maybe more leaks coming, so more of that to talk about.
I would have to suspect as we get closer, we're going to see more and more of what this is going to look like.
They're going to be hype machining it up. We're going to be right there with you, and then this Monday we'll be just continuing hobby stuff and that kind of fun things. So either way, we'll see you next week. Come see us Sunday when we premiere or debut, if you will, our first Horus Heresy game. We've got Night Lords in the wing. We've got not Blood Angels. We have Dark Angels, and we have Sons of Horus armies currently in the list. Ooh. If you're someone who loves Horus Heresy, lives local, and wants to be on stream, and as long as you're not crazy, like crazy bad,
that's like
crazy
that,
good.
Dude, that's only like 30%.
Yeah, crazy good we like, crazy bad not so much. But give us, send me a private message if you got an army we don't have. We wouldn't have a problem putting you in the rotation and getting some variety of armies on stream.
For sure.
And again, thank you for being here. Give us a like, give us a sub, hit that bell symbol, check out all of our links, join us in the Discord, get involved in the giveaways that we're doing, and and there's just more coming. We're growing. This is becoming a fun hobby for us on top of our already hobbying.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate you being here. So we'll see you next week for sure, and we'll see you this Sunday. So
thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for your thoughts on the thread too.
Yeah, my name is Steven, and this is
Kyle.
And we will see you next time.